Yo, so guys, welcome back to another video, and this is another video reaction on or related to the US and like just things linked to the country. And this video is How America Became a Superpower by Vox, a channel that I've seen before. I feel like I've watched their videos in my own time sometimes, but I don't think I've reacted to them on this channel. But with it being Thanksgiving the day I'm recording, I'm not sure if I'm going to post this video on Thanksgiving. If so, hope you have a great day. It should be coming up around what, 4-ish US time, depending on where you're from. But I hope you have a good day. I'm not really too up to date with like what you exactly celebrate during Thanksgiving, but I know it's a big holiday in the US, and hopefully you're having a good day. And if this video is being posted the day after, hope you had a great day. And yeah, that's just it really. But I am curious as to what this video is going to talk about. I feel like I've seen videos in the past that sort of touch upon it here and there, but there's never been like a full video explaining the whole sort of process of the US sort of being where they were and then becoming the superpower that they are. But I'm interested, man. I'm interested to see sort of the influences, maybe, because I'm seeing the flag of the UK there, so maybe there's like a sort of influence there. I'm not too sure, but we're going to check this out and let's just see what this video has to explain to me, because as you know, I'm not the smartest guy when it comes to certain things, so I've got a lot to learn here, but hopefully you guys are going to enjoy it. Let's just check this out.
The modern United States is the most powerful country in human history, with over 800 military bases and 37% of global military
spending. So how old is this
spending.
video, just so I can get a little idea? So it's 4 years ago, so it's a few years back.
The US has become the leader of a vast, interconnected global system that has helped usher...
I didn't see that. Wait, what was that? World military budgets. God damn. I mean, you see it compared to China, and China is a rich country. And it's just like, bam. Is that like too much, or is it... I mean, I guess I remember seeing in the last video that the US do help protect other countries as well. But that is insane. Compared to the UK, god damn. Bloody hell, that is insane.
The leader of a vast, interconnected global
it's probably
system that has
increased
helped
since
usher in
video
an
as
era
well.
of unprecedented prosperity and low levels of conflict. To understand America's position in the world, and why it's so pivotal for world politics as we know it, you have to go back to the country's founding, back to when America wasn't a global power in any sense of the word. During the first 70 years of its existence, the United States expanded in both territory and influence in North America, eventually reaching the Pacific Ocean, in a wave of expansionism that resulted in the wholesale slaughter of the indigenous people who populated the continent. But early Americans were deeply divided as to whether the country should expand beyond the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. This became a major debate after the Civil War, when some leaders, like post-war Secretary of State Seward, argued that America should push to become a global power. Seward succeeded in pushing a plan to purchase Alaska from Russia, but his attempts to buy Greenland and Iceland, as well as annexed territory in the Caribbean, were all blocked by Congress. That's because some Americans, including many on Capitol Hill, had a strong anti-imperialist bent. These people worried about America getting more involved in global politics, as well as having to integrate populations from quote-unquote inferior races. And this opposition implied major checks on the imperialist urge to expand. But something was happening in the late 1800s that would change the debate about American expansionism. The Industrial Revolution produced explosive economic growth, and the bigger US economy required a more centralized state and bureaucracy to manage the growing economy. Power became concentrated in the federal government, making it easier for expansionist presidents, like William McKinley, to unilaterally push American influence abroad. The key turning point came in 1898, when President McKinley dragged the country into war with Spain over Cuba, despite some intense domestic opposition. The rising United States easily defeated the moribund Spanish Empire, acquiring Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines in the process.
Oh wow.
Over the next 2 years, the US would annex the Kingdom of Hawaii, Wake Island, and American Samoa. A few years later, the US took control of the Panama Canal Zone and sent troops to occupy the Dominican Republic. It also purchased the American Virgin Islands. This period of rapid acquisition of far-flung territories put the US on the map as a truly global power. During this time, America also began using its influence to protect its growing commercial and military interests abroad, installing pro-American regimes in places like Nicaragua, and playing a major role in international diplomacy regarding the Western presence in China. World War I showed just how much America's influence had grown. Not only was American intervention a decisive factor in the war's end, but President Wilson attended the Paris Peace Conference, which ended the war, and attempted to set the terms of the peace. He spearheaded America's most ambitious foreign policy initiative yet, an international organization called the League of Nations, designed to promote peace and cooperation globally. The League, a wholesale effort to remake global politics, showed just how ambitious American foreign policy had become. Yet isolationism was still a major force in the United States. Congress blocked the United States from joining the League of Nations, dooming Wilson's project. During the Great Depression and the rise of Hitler, the US was much more focused on its own region than on European affairs.
Which is completely
Ultimately,
fair enough, right?
America's ever-growing entanglements abroad made it impossible for it to stay out of...
Always Europe just trying to... Why was it all... In recent history, it's just always been Europe, hasn't it? We've got, like, I feel like Europe now is a very, like... It's... I say a safe place, that's probably not the right word, but, like... There's not, like, sort of any sort of ideas of war. At least, I think on the east side it is a bit more hostile. But in general, it seems like a lot more peaceful continent than it was, especially back then. Like every other year there was a war breaking out, etc. And like, why should the US get involved? Right, it's a country across like miles away from the continent, so you can't blame them whatsoever.
In East Asia, the growing Japanese Empire posed a direct threat to American possessions and troops, bringing the United States and Japan into conflict. This culminated in the Pearl Harbor attack, bringing the United States into World War II.
Crazy.
World War II would transform America's global presence forever. The United States was the only major power to avoid economic ruin during the war, and it was the sole country equipped with atomic weapons. As such, it was in a unique position to set the terms of the peace, and, with the aim of preventing another war in mind, it took advantage. The most famous example of this is the creation of the United Nations. The UN Charter set up a system of international law prohibiting wars of conquest, like the ones waged by the Nazis and the Japanese. It also served as a forum in which the international community could weigh in on disputes and help resolve them. This way, the Americans hoped, great powers could resolve their differences through compromise and law rather than war. But while the UN is the most famous of the post-war institutions, it isn't the only one. 730 delegates from all 44 allied nations came together in a small vacation haven in New Hampshire. Their goal? To establish a global financial system that would prevent another Great Depression and World War. The resulting agreement, called the Bretton Woods Agreement, ultimately became the backbone of the global financial system, resulting in the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund.
So thank God that happened then.
By creating these institutions, the United States committed itself to being deeply involved in the world's problems.
And helping to
The
solve them.
issue, though, is that the world's second largest power, the Soviet Union, saw things differently. World War II had made allies out of the democratic West and communist East in the fight against Hitler, but that couldn't last. The United States saw Soviet expansion in Eastern Europe and elsewhere as a direct threat to its vision of a free-trading, democratic world.
To a substantial degree, in one form or another, socialism has spread the shadow of human regimentation over most of the nations of the earth, and the shadow is encroaching upon our own liberty.
Oh, this is insane.
Fearful of Soviet intentions towards Western Europe, the US and other European nations created the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, a military alliance meant to stop Russia from invading other countries in Europe. Globally, the US committed to a strategy called containment, so called because it was aimed at containing the spread of communism everywhere on the globe. This new global struggle meant that the US had to exert influence everywhere, all the time. Instead of disbanding the massive military machine created for World War II, the wheels mostly kept turning. This had two main results. First, the US was pulled into unlikely alliances with countries like Saudi Arabia, Israel, and South Korea, seeing each of them as bulwarks against communist influence in their region. Secondly, the US began intervening, often secretly, in dozens of countries to contain Soviet influence. Sometimes this meant propping up sympathetic dictators, like in Iran. Other times, it meant supplying rebels with arms and money, like in Afghanistan in 1979 and Nicaragua in 1985. Over the course of the Cold War, the US intervened in hundreds of disputes around the globe, ending up with a complicated set of alliances, tensions, and relationships in basically every corner of the Earth.
That's a very good point, actually. Because they're now the superpower. They're trying to... I mean, from my point of view, they're trying to do the right thing and stopping communism from spreading and all these different things. But then, again, there's going to be things that go wrong and all these different sort of cases and scenarios. But it is a sort of a thing where, like, around the world, it's either you love the US or you hate the US. And it's kind of the same with the UK. Probably not as much because I feel like the UK's got a lot less involved because we're just not a superpower like that anymore. But still, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like the US is the most talked country, and it's probably talked about country, and it's probably because of things like this, because they're trying to do so many different things. And it's just interesting seeing this. Like, you see like all these different these blue sort of spots around countries, and it's just like all these colours. There's countries coloured in blue, and it just shows all the involvement that they have. It really does.
After the Berlin Wall fell, the US could have withdrawn from the system, severing ties with its allies and drawing down the size of its military. And while the US did decrease military spending, much of the military infrastructure and alliances from the Cold War remained. Presidents George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton decided that it was in both America and the world's interests for the United States, now the sole superpower on Earth, to continue actively managing global affairs.
We should be and we must be peacemakers.
NATO, created solely as a tool for countering the Soviet Union, stayed together and even expanded, a way of keeping European nations united in the absence of the Soviet threat. Washington's support for countries like Israel and Japan stayed intact, ostensibly as a means of preventing war in their respective regions. The global system of alliances and institutions created to keep the peace during the Cold War became permanent, as did the American military and political commitments necessary to keep them running. This system remains in operation today.
Oh my god. Look at them around the world. That's insane. Look how many are just in the UK. The UK is tiny, and that's crazy. Wait, I swear there's a US military base near me, actually. Where the thing is. That's very close to where I live. Very close to where I live. That's crazy. And they're just all around the world. You notice there's barely any in this sort of area of Asia. That's the Middle East, right? No, it's not. It's not the Middle East, because it's not. Oh yeah, I know, because that's actually called the Middle East, but it's like weird why it's called that when that's not actually the middle. But there's none in Russia. There's none in China. There's none in India. There's only one in Australia. That's kind of surprising as well. There's a lot in Japan though. But yeah, this is very intriguing seeing this sort of.
And no leading American
graph.
politician since the Cold War seriously called for dismantling it. Except, perhaps, for Donald Trump.
Oh wow.
Trump has said contradictory things about these commitments, but he's consistently argued that American allies are not paying the US enough for its protection, and questioned the value of free trade. That calls NATO and even the World Trade Organization into question.
At some point, we have to say, you know what? We're better off if Japan protects itself against this maniac in North Korea. We're better off, frankly, if South Korea is going to start to protect itself.
Saudi Arabia, nuclear weapons?
Saudi Arabia, absolutely.
This is a sharp divergence from the consensus that has dominated US foreign policy since 1945, and something closer to the isolationism that came before it. So will President Trump act on some of candidate Trump's ideas and reverse decades worth of institution building and alliances? We'll find out soon enough.
Well, this is 4 years ago, and from my knowledge, nothing changed, right? I don't know if it did, because I would have been a lot younger as well, and I wouldn't have kept up to date with this kind of stuff, but that's an interesting end to it. I didn't expect that, but maybe he's got a point. I don't really know the statistics and finances through all of that. And watch next, why does the 800 military bases around the world? US starts invading other countries, Britain tears up just like its mother. It's true. It's true. Oh, that is a funny meme, I can't lie. Fun fact, Americans called hamburgers Liberty Streaks during World War II because they thought hamburgers sounded too German. Really? USA invades other countries and makes them dependent. UK in tears of joy, that's my son. It's just, I don't understand. It's just crazy. It's crazy how like the UK's just fell off and the US is just like, yeah, I'll take that, mate. Whoever failed to buy Greenland, shame. Wait, I swear I saw a video saying the US is going to buy Greenland. Was it up here? I swear I saw it somewhere. I swear I saw it somewhere. Those simpler times when you could literally buy an entire state from a country. Whoever failed to buy Greenland. Oh, I saw that. Next up, how coronavirus became a global superpower. The US started off as isolationists and became involved in literally everything within 50 years. It's crazy, isn't it? It's actually crazy how like quickly that happened. US was the only major power to avoid economic ruin. I guess the UK is not a major power then. It's not though, is it? I swear, like, I don't even know if the UK is a major power at all anymore. I mean, I don't really keep up to date with how that's even gauged and how like you decide a country's a superpower or not. But I guess it's down to finances, right, and global influence. US the biggest part of the story, US dollar. But interesting video, man. It's a bit different, but I do enjoy this kind of stuff. And with it being Thanksgiving, when I'm reacting to this, it just sort of made sense to do this type of reaction. But hopefully you guys went to enjoy. Suggest some more things you want like this in future, and yeah, until next time, like, subscribe, peace.